Welcome to another episode of Train Wild, our monthly series on the podcast focused around living a happier, healthier lifestyle. And today we're kind of talking about the mental game of being on the mountain. Guys, listen, if you've spent time on the mountain, especially, you push it out to a 6, 7, 8 day hunt, you have faced mental barriers. You have had to have that grit and that toughness to push through that. And so I am joined by Jared Thomas, and we kind of take a different turn. We talk about knowing when to throw in the towel. Jared kind of sprung it on me, but I absolutely love the direction that the podcast goes because there is a time where I just need to say, you know what? I need to be at home right now. I don't need to be here. I need to be with the wife. I need to be with the kids. So there is that time where it's just not a good time to be out there, whether you're battling different things or whether, just because of a position that life has put you in and you just simply know, like, I need to be at home rather than here. And that's a hard call to make because we all love hunting. Sometimes it's a necessary call to make. And so we talk about when to know the difference in those times. Am I just being weak because my knees hurt and I'm dehydrated and I want a hot meal and a comfy bed? Or is there something actually truly going on here and I need to go back home for it? So guys, it's a really good episode. I really hope that you'll tune in and listen as we talk through some of these topics. Guys, as always, our monthly Train Wild series is brought to you by Mountain Tough, the best way to get prepared for the mountain. They have so many programs to help you get prepared for the mountain and help you be successful on the mountain. Click the link in the description of this episode and you can get a test run of the programs for free. And then on the link, it'll help you save a little bit of money as you become a Mountain Tough athlete and get prepared for the mountain. I can tell you in my life, it's made a difference. Started running a program, went out to Montana to chase bears, and I was more prepared for the mountain than I had ever been. So go check out Mountain Tough. Click the link in the description to save you some money on it. But guys, let's dive in with Mr. Jared Thomas. I hope that you enjoy it.
With over 90 years of innovation, Bear Archery continues pushing toward the goal of founder Fred Bear, making archery accessible for all. Fred believed the history of the bow and arrow were the history of mankind, and everyone should immerse themselves in the outdoor experience. Welcome to the Bear Archery Podcast, where the mission is simple: to hunt, grow, and inspire others.
Guys, I oftentimes say that I always have a binocular harness on my chest. What good is a binocular harness without a good set of binoculars? I am a sucker for fine Japanese glass. I love good optics. I love spending time behind it. It's just fun. It's fun to go out and look at stuff, but also good optics make spotting and looking through them a whole lot more enjoyable. Kowa Optics does it and does it better than anyone else, in my opinion. They have some of the finest Japanese glass on planet Earth. It's all I've used for the past, 8 years or so. This right here, the Kowa 55, is one of the best products ever made in the history of the universe. It is the smallest, most compact scope you can get, but it still offers phenomenal glass. It's really hard to find a spotter that is this small, this light, this compact. You can throw it in your backpack. You can leave it in your truck. It's so small and so compact, but it still offers phenomenal glass. This is one of my favorite products ever. Guys, if you're in the market for new optics, I would highly encourage you to check out Kowa Optics because they are, in my opinion, the best glass that you can buy. Go check them out. All right, Jared. So before we jump in, man, give us an introduction to yourself, bro. Been a long time since you've been on the show. Had you on a few times in the past, but it's been a while. So for anybody who's listening, give us an introduction to yourself.
Yeah, my name is Jared Thomas. My social media handles are Peaked Out Adventures. Been running those for a little bit, primarily faith, family, fitness, and videography stuff. Full-time firefighter, paramedic. Do some personal training and stuff on the side. Got a beautiful family with twin boys and a daughter and an awesome wife. So, yeah, just living the dream, man.
I used to say I wanted twin boys, but my son is such a maniac. Like, he just does some crazy stuff. I'm like, I could not handle if there was two of you.
Aren't little boys wild, man?
Dude.
They're such a handful. So take one and then times it by 3.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because for some reason,
I did a video. So I recorded a podcast Tuesday night. So just a couple nights ago. And I was in studio with one of my friends, and we were talking about those kids that just aren't afraid of anything. Like, and those kids scare me. And I was like, because, Tucker will just pick up a snake or a scorpion, whatever he finds, he's just picking it up. And I'm like, Tuck, dude, you don't know if it's poisonous. Like, you have to be afraid of things. Or, like the Grand Canyon, just like run up to the edge. I'm like, bro, you have to have this boundary and this sense of fear. And so I was telling that story and just kind of talking about that. And I kid you not, 30 minutes after saying that, we walk out of the studio and he's riding his bike up out of the woods and he's yelling, Dad, I just got bit by a snake. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. But yeah, I mean, he just does some wild stuff, dude. I mean, it's all fun. I mean, we're never bored. I'll tell you that, but I could not imagine having 2 of them to do it all together.
Yeah. And funny thing is they have 2 completely different personalities.
Yeah.
My one littler one, Royal, he's like your boy. It's just zero fear, jumps off everything, tackles everything. Oh, dude. And then the other one is just super sensitive and soft. And
yeah,
it's
wild. So I took Joey Zatmary, who's a national champion strongman, took him on a hunt. And so he gets off the plane and I'm there to pick him up. And I mean, I knew he was a goofball. And so I really wasn't worried about it. But literally the first words out of my son's mouth, 5-year-old Tucker, was, dude, I'll beat you up right now. And here's this behemoth of a man, like 6'5", deadlifts 800 pounds and squats, 600.
Dude,
I'm like, dude,
beat you up right now.
I'm like, why would you say that, dude? Like, luckily Joey was cool, but I'm like, man, you've got to learn like where to stop, dude.
Oh, dude, what they say, kids say the darndest things, right? No filter.
Yeah. None at all.
Where do you learn that from?
Not me, dude. I'm not brave. I don't run my mouth to people. I only fight one type of person. That's the person I 100% know I can beat up. So usually like little children, I don't run my mouth because I'm not tough, dude. I learned my lessons the hard way.
Same, man. Same.
So it's the end of August when this episode goes out. So everybody's headed out to the elk woods and to chase elk around. So I really don't want this to be a prep episode because if you haven't prepped yet, it's too late.
It's too late and $1 short.
You're going to get ate up. However, recap with me what you have been doing to get prepared. Whether you've been running a Mountain Tough program, which by the way, I'll put the link in the description below. You can save on a Mountain Tough subscription, support those guys. They're phenomenal. But walk me through what you've been doing to get prepared for this moment, heading out in just a couple weeks.
Yeah. This year honestly has been a little bit different than years past. I started training for an ultra marathon back in January.
Ooh.
So completely unorthodox for me. And I knew that I had a short window to train in and it was going to be kind of stupid and not very smart as far as smart training goes. So I was training for that, ended up hurting my ankle pretty good. And like I was on my spring bear hunt with my dad. And when we were walking down to go retrieve my bear, like every step down where my foot would like extend, dude, it about set me to the ground.
Oh,
so that was right there was like, I'm done running. It's not worth ruining my hunting season for. So as far as like a lot of cardio and stuff, I haven't been able to do as much as I normally do. Usually I'll be hiking a ton. I don't do much running at all. I'll throw a weight vest on or my pack, steep as incline as I can go on the treadmill at about a 3-mile-an-hour pace and just do that I'll usually do like 20 minutes on, 10 minutes. I'll flip backwards, drop it down to 1.5 and walk backwards uphill and then switch it around again, 20 minutes, do the same thing. And then as far as weightlifting goes, a ton of unilateral stuff. Like you said, Mountain Tough is a great program. They have specific trainings for getting in shape for obviously the mountains and stuff like that, which include a ton of unilateral stuff. So holding the kettlebell on one side, doing single leg lunges, so Bulgarian split squats, anything to where you're taxing your core and then you're off balance with stuff. Because unless you're walking through a flat desert, you're going to be off balance and you're going to be using your stabilizer muscles and stuff like that. So usually July time, which I've been able to do now, this last month, which I would normally do prior to season, is I would ramp up the volume of my lifting and decrease the weight significantly. So all after hunting season up until July, it's all just strength training, moderate rep ranges, but like now it's like 5 sets of 20. So pretty high reps and a lot of sets of lunges and squats and deadlifts and Bulgarian split squats and single arm overhead kettlebell lunges, stuff like that. So definitely ramp up.
I missed it. I was at Western Hunt Expo. I wasn't at the Mountain Ops booth, at the Mountain Tough booth when you did it, but you did one of the live workouts at Western, didn't you?
Yeah, I got voluntold to do it. It was good. It got me out of my comfort zone. Believe it or not, I'm not great at like public speaking or being up in front of crowds and stuff like that. But yeah, they said, "Hey, do you want to do this? Actually, you're going to do this." And I said, "Okay."
Sounds good. That's always like a lose-lose situation, you know, because if you like just crush the workout, then everybody's like, "Oh yeah, one of their athletes," you know. And if you do bad, it's like, "I thought you were in shape," you know. Like either way, you lose. Like it's like when like a lot of kids want to shoot with me, you know, they're like, "Hey, can we come over and shoot?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And it's like you know, they'll want to have a little competition. I'm like, either way, this is a lose-lose. Like if I win, you're just like, "Oh yeah, but you shoot all the time." And if I shoot bad, then you're like, "Oh, I thought you were a good shot." I'm like, "There's no winning all the time." Yeah, there's no winning.
No. So you got to do it.
Yeah. So switching into, you know, like I said, we're 2 weeks out. My hunt is the end of September, so I've still got, you know, 3 or 4 weeks left. But really, it's here. I mean, you're heading out west. People are heading out, you know, 1st of September to get ready for those hunts. But what are you doing last minute to kind of make sure that, you know, you're physically prepared for that?
Like rolling into depending on when my hunt is and what hunt I have planned, usually that week before, honestly, I treat it like you're going into a race, right? Like I'm making sure my hydration's on point. Because if you're already behind on your hydration, then you're screwed, right? So I'm making sure my hydration, my calories, and my nutrition are all on point, because you're not going to get in shape in a week, right? Like you said, if you haven't prepared for season by now, it's not too late to start. It'll help, but you're not going to get in shape in time, right? So it's dialing in my opinion, what is the most important thing is your nutrition and hydration. And then obviously you have your gear laid out. Everybody probably at this point has their gear and they're strung out in their garage already.
Yeah.
Realizing that they probably don't have what they need, or they have way too much stuff or stuff like that. But I think nutrition is not looked at serious enough, as well as hydration. That'll get you more than anything out there, especially in your backcountry hunts.
I think, man, hydration for those of you, and you know, Jared, not that he can't speak to it well, but Jared's not the best to listen to on this, because you live at what? You live at least 5,000-6,000, right?
Yeah.
I live at, you know, 1,100. And so when I get out of the truck at 7,000, like it just kicks my butt. And I used to use that as an excuse, like, well, my body just doesn't acclimate to elevation like some people's does. And I'll give it that. Some people just can hop out of the truck and be perfectly fine. Like my wife doesn't struggle with it near as bad as I do. But I have learned that if that week before, I will just load up on water. I mean, I'm peeing every 20 minutes, but I want to be as hydrated as I can going into that. Then the elevation will be a lot less of an impact. Like you'll acclimate a lot quicker. You'll handle it a lot better. So I would encourage everybody, like especially if you're at a low altitude and you're about to get out of the truck, you know, at 7,000-8,000, start chasing elk, focus that whole first week, you know, the week prior to the hunt, focus on just drinking as much water as you possibly can. Have you used that? There's a supplement that Mountain Ops sells that helps you acclimate to high elevation. Now, again, I don't know if you've ever used it because you are at a high elevation, but Solitude. Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah, I played with it a little bit, but like you said, I live at 5,000 feet. I didn't play with it because, I mean, my hunting is 10,000, right?
Right. So you're
which
still
is
doubling. That's still
straight up out of the Salt Lake Valley. Is you climb up that high. So yeah, I still hit elevation, but like you're saying, hydration is the biggest thing when it comes to acclimating to elevation. And it's not just water, it's your electrolytes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can, whatever electrolytes you want to use. I obviously use Mountain Ops and I love them, but your electrolytes need to go hand in hand with your water intake.
Yeah, 100%.
Or you will just be peeing it out.
Yeah, and almost to an extent to where you're doing more harm than good because you're flushing all your electrolytes out. I mean, by peeing and by drinking so much water, you're just flushing everything that you need out. So be replenishing that the week before. Be focusing on that hardcore. Now, as far as, I mean, do you do anything? You know, you hear the stories of guys who, you know, go 2 days early and, you know, try to hike in however far the first 2 days before the hunt ever starts. Do you do anything like that to help you acclimate and get prepared for the altitude?
I don't. I was going to suggest that for your listeners. It might be a good idea if you got a day or two extra to get in. I mean, A, you can start scouting, right?
Yeah.
But B, you can take your time getting in so you're not killing yourself getting in. And then you get to camp and you're like, oh, now I need 2 days to recover, which is the first opening 2 days of the season, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to be doing that. But like I said, I'm blessed in the fact that I'm 40 minutes from where I hunt. So I don't, like, I go in for day hunts. 90% of my hunts are day hunts. I can even just half a day hunt. I can go hike in, get the morning glass done, come back down, get some work done, whatever I need to do. And like every day. So,
yeah.
So I'm lucky in that aspect. But like I said, I was going to suggest that if you can get in a day or two early, it helps.
You know, it sounds super goofy, but, you know, for me, I've got 4 of my buddies and we're driving from Kansas all the way to northern Idaho. We've got 23 hours on the road. It sounds funny, but take turns. I mean, if you know you're about to stop for gas in 2 miles, let one guy finish the drive, the other 3 hop out and put a pack on and walk up the highway. I mean, it sounds goofy, but I can't get there 2 days early. I mean, I'm already taking off, 8 days and plus the drive time. I mean, I'm already 10 days into this deal. I can't really take off and get there 2 days early. However, we do that. I'll say, hey, you drive to the next exit, drop me off here, drive to the next where we're going to get gas and I'll meet you there. But over those 2 days of driving, that gives you a chance to put in, 7-8 miles and it helps you, because we're slowly going up. So if I stop, if we stop, say, I don't know, 600 miles in, well, I'm already at 3,000 feet of elevation. If we stop another 600 miles in, now we're at, 4,200, whatever it might be. But I'm letting myself slowly get higher in elevation and walking and staying active rather than get in the truck at 12,000 or at 1,200, get out at 8,000 and just start bombing up the mountain for elk. It helps me get acclimated to that. So it's just something to think about. And if you're driving alone, well, then even when you stop, just put on your pack and walk around the gas station or whatever for 30 minutes. I mean, it sounds silly, but it's things that add up that make a really big difference rather than just getting out of the truck and juicing up the mountain.
Oh yeah. I mean, even if somebody who's had a day of traveling when you're going on vacation or something, and you go try to lift or something that day, you get there or the day exhausted. After, you're smoked, man. And you're all stiff and you feel weak. And if that's actually a really good idea, if you can get up and get moving, taking turns, like what's it going to take an extra hour or two? And what's that in a 23-hour drive?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember the very first time I ever headed out west, it was the worst situation that you could be in for somebody heading out west. So I was meeting the guys from SNS Archery, and we were basically meeting at the campsite where we were going to be hunting. Well, it was like a 23-hour drive for me, and so I just decided, well, I'm just going to suck down some energy drinks and just drive it. And so I stopped for about 3 hours and slept in a gas station, but pretty much drove 23 hours straight. And I get out of the truck at 2 p.m. And Rob from SNS, if you're listening, I'll never forgive you for this. So I had driven for 23 hours and at 2 p.m. he's like, well, you ready to head in? I'm like, I guess. Like I thought I was going to be able to sleep that night, and then we'd head in. I'm like, I guess. And so got in the truck at 1,200 foot of elevation, got out at 7,000, no sleep, drove 24 hours straight. And then we got a truck and just start hiking up the mountain. I didn't think I was making it out of there. Like I thought I'm done. And for the
Dude,
reasons you just said, like you're just gassed, dude. You're after driving and traveling so long, it's just your body is just not doing well. Now let's talk a little bit about, and I told you I kind of wanted to touch on this, but well, before we get into that, because I want to take a deep dive into that. But before we get into that,
I'm not ready to go that deep yet.
walk me through. I see a bow laying there behind you. Walk me through how you optimize setting up that dialed sight. I get that question.
Oh, yeah.
I've had a couple guys ask me like, "Hey, I got a dialed. How are you optimizing that sight setup for bow hunting in the mountains?"
So first thing, you can get these in like a single pin or a 3-pin. Hunting wise, I opt for the 3-pin.
Yeah, absolutely.
For obvious reasons, right? The nice thing about the dialed is you see this angled bar right here. It allows you to get more distance out of your sight, just by the angle of the way that it dials down. So like my pin gap at 100, 110, and 120 is like there's 7 between each one of them, which physics wise it should be 7, 9, like 12.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's one pretty awesome thing about this. But with they have a custom dialed tape maker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know that. You can hop online. It's like $10 a year, and then you can build your custom tape, custom colors, everything. I've touched on it on my Instagram, stuff like that. But they have their sight in tape, and what I like to do is sight in every single distance. So 10, 20, 30, 40, get my number, and then enter in that data online. So that way I know exactly for Jared, my sight tape is absolutely perfect, right? Because you can do the 20 and 60, and then it just uses an algorithm to get you your 70 and 80, and then the distances between like your 40 and 50 and stuff like that, which it's going to be very, very close, but it's not going to be perfect, right? So that's how I go in through getting my tape and getting it sighted in. These things are so simple. Like the second and third axis is very, very easy to get level. Like I can have this thing leveled in like 2 minutes. So if you are going in the mountains and stuff like that, obviously your third axis, make sure that thing is level, because you're not going to be shooting on flat ground. And you're going to really notice if you level up your bubble on a side hill and it's not level, you're going to hit left or right.
Right.
Potentially pretty significantly, right? So if anybody's ever experienced that, then it could be your third axis. So
and I encourage everybody, and I'm going to put a video out I'm going to put out a video about this soon, but I encourage everybody, find somewhere you can shoot up, down, and side hill. Now I know I'm about the roughest. I mean, I live in Kansas. I can only shoot in wheat fields. And if there are any local law enforcement officers listening to this episode, please skip ahead for 30 seconds. But I go to my local dam early in the morning. There's nobody else at the park. I go to the dam, and that way I can shoot down the dam, up the dam, across the dam. And that's going to show you a lot about your equipment. Like if you're shooting side hill or down or up and you're missing so far left and you're like, but I had my bubble level, I shot good. Your second, third axes are out. Check those. Now with your pin set at 20 on the dialed, well, first off, where do you run it? Like to get the most, because we talked about this on a couple episodes back. Do you do the whole, optimize it at 27 yards and then I can shoot at 10 if I hold over? I can shoot at, 40 if I hold under. Where do you set that sight, like when you're hunting?
So for me, there was a period of time, probably about 3 years worth, where I would have my top pin at 25. But like I would get too stressed out. It's like I noticed it big time at like Total Archery Challenge. So if something was at like what with my top pin, like 27, or like it wasn't the perfectly like the 25, like I was hitting high or low within more of a variation than I really wanted. Right. So I run it at 20 yards now. And with the dialed, I run, let's see if you can see. Can you see those pins?
Yeah.
At all? Watch this. There you go. There they are. Okay. So you got 3 pins, obviously. And I sight in. So like I said, I sighted in all the way out to 120 yards. That's with my top pin clearing. So my dial, on other sites like Montana Black Gold, Spot Hawk, stuff like that, I dialed with the bottom pin, right? So this one is the top pin, and then this second pin, which you can set your pins here, these little pins. That'll tell you what that yardage is at a certain distance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then same with this third bottom pin here. So in theory, this site should be able to clear 150 plus yards.
Jiminy Christmas.
Yeah, but I run the top pin is 20, and then the middle pin, I think, let me get you my actual numbers. I don't know. Oh, there it is. So right now I just keep track on my notes while I'm creating a tape. So 37 yards is my second pin and 50 is my bottom pin when my sight is set at 20. So that kind of gives you a little bit of variation. When you're
So do you find yourself using those? Here's my only problem with dialed. And I have no problem saying this. One of the owners is a friend of mine, and I've told him this. My only problem with the dialed is that you can't adjust those second two pins. I mean, because ideally I would like to have it 20, 30, 40. Mm-hmm. Because I just, say my top pin is sitting at 20. And like you said, I want to dial it exactly. So if an elk steps out at, 32, and I know that bottom pin's at 37, or that second pin's at 37, I'm still going to want to dial it and use that top pin.
Mm-hmm. That's my only issue. That's my deer was at 32 yards last year, and my pin's at 20, and I think it was about the same 37 last year.
Yeah.
I did have to dial, but I had time to.
Right.
So, yeah, it can be a little bit, it almost becomes like a single pin at that point, huh?
Yeah.
And then I know what you're talking about, and I kind of agree with you, but I haven't ran into where it's been that big of an issue.
So do you find yourself ever using those second two pins?
Honestly, I shoot the middle pin the best.
Really?
I don't mentally, for whatever reason, I shoot that middle pin better than I do like the top and the bottom one. But I don't use those bottom two pins until I max out that top pin.
Yeah.
If I have time to range, and if I have time to dial, which if I don't have time to range past 40, 50, 60 yards, then I'm probably not going to shoot anyways. Right. Then I'd just be guessing. And I know myself, and I'm not that good at judging yardage. So like, if I don't have time to range it and dial, then I probably shouldn't be shooting anyways.
Especially judging distance in the mountains. It's so much harder. I mean, if you're looking straight down, it's so much harder to judge distance. But that would be, I just get that question a lot of like, hey, I'm looking at the dialed, but how would I set it up to optimize it for bow hunting? Because I can't move those second two pins.
Yeah.
And honestly, I just tell people like those second two pins are more of a reference. Now, if you get lucky and the elk does step out at 50 and that third pin is at 50, great. But for me, it's more of a reference and assurance. So if I'm set it at 20, that the elk is at 20, and for whatever reason, he takes two big old jumps out, maybe he is near the 37 mark. So it gives me that extra, like if I don't have time to dial and he is at 34, well, then I know I can pull the shot off, I know I can still make that shot because I have a 20-yard reference and a 37-yard reference. But yeah, I'm going to use it more like a single pin with two reference points, if that makes sense. Yeah. If I was to use that sight. Now, I prefer a 3-pin, but I prefer it to where I can, again, set all 3 pins. So have 20, 30, 40, and then dial down from there. Which is, that's just what I like. It's a personal preference. But dialed is taking the world by storm. And so I'm getting a lot of questions about them. And honestly, I've played with them a couple times, not enough to really tell you how I would set it up. But that would be my answer is you're really using your top pin as a single pin, and then you have 2 references if needed.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, unless you get lucky, like Braxton's buck walked out at 57 yards. His third pin was 57 yards.
Yeah.
Last year. Right. So he just drew back and smoked it. But I don't know if I should say this, but I heard from a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend that there may be something in the works with dialed. to.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, but
You might have heard it here first, folks.
I don't know.
You
Maybe it's
might have
wishful
heard it
thinking.
here first.
Maybe it's wishful thinking. It could be wishful thinking.
I'll have to
So
make a phone call.
yeah, make sure that I don't get anybody in trouble.
I will. So one thing I want to talk about, well, actually take a step back. I heard somebody say this and it was brilliant. They said that if they were to scroll their site down, so say just like you, it's 20, 37, and 50. Somebody put out a video and they said, hey, I realized that if I set my pin at 25, then I have 25, 40, and 55. So it's more of, exact type of numbers, a 15-yard gap on those 3 pins if I scroll it to 25, if I leave it at 25 yards. So I would look at that. Can I scroll it to 15 and then I have 15, 30, and 45? That would be dope. I would look at that kind of play around with, if I move it to 25, where would those two be? If I move it to 15, where would those two be? So I would look at that and check that out, because that would be a cool way to run the site.
I'm pretty sure I did have a point last year on my setup where it did work out very nicely.
Yeah. So I would check that out. But one thing I want to talk about, and this, I kind of want this to be the focus of the podcast. Just mental toughness in the mountains. And, you talked about it and you said, dude, I've had some breakdowns up there, which I think we all have. And I'll tell you, dude, if you don't have breakdowns, that's when I'm a little worried about you. Like if you can just go out into the woods and exist, like, then you probably need to get some therapy. And I say that because, like, dude, no matter what, like, I don't care if I'm in the middle of screaming bulls all week long. I'm still missing my wife. I'm still missing my kids. And that weighs on you sometimes, especially you get to day 5, 6, 7 of being away. And my son's birthday's in September. So a lot of times I'm sending him a message over, the Garmin saying, happy birthday, buddy. I love you. I mean, that can weigh on you pretty hard. And so if you don't have any kind of, breakdowns or missing family or wanting to go back home, then you should probably question, did I marry the right gal? But so walk me through kind of just a day in the mind of Jared when he's on the mountain. Like, what do you tell yourself to stay focused and hang in there?
Man. Well, I'm wondering if we should start with a story.
Yeah, kick it off, man.
It's on my deer hunt from last year on my YouTube. But dude, I had a bad one last year as far as a breakdown. I ended up, so I hiked in, what was it, 5-6 miles up into my camp spot. I set up camp, and no joke, I get to my glassing knob. I sit down, probably 5 minutes later, dude, just tears, breakdown. And I'm just thinking to myself, what am I doing here? Why am I here? And a little backstory to that, being a firefighter and a first responder, we see some pretty gnarly stuff. Mm-hmm. We deal with a lot of stuff. And unfortunately on social media lately, I've been seeing a lot of people like saying, well, what you signed up for, stuff like that. And it's, we do. We knew what we were getting into, but at the same time, you can't prepare for the stuff that you see. And it's really, really hard to deal with. So that on top of just being away from family a lot, working already, because we're there for 48 hours straight. And then if things aren't completely copacetic on the home front, which they were good. There was nothing wrong. I'll preface that. There was nothing wrong there, but just missing the family, missing the kids, stuff like that. That stuff, they describe it as like a bucket of water, right? Every little stress or something hard is a little drop of water in that bucket. Eventually that bucket's going to fill up, right? My bucket was full. It was overflowing at that point when I sat down on the mountain. So dude, I went down, loaded up my camp, and I went back home. So hiked in.
Good for you.
Last for a second, started crying, packed up my camp, and I went back home for 3 or 4 days to get my mind right and stuff. So I think first and foremost, you got to recognize when you're in a dark spot. You got to be willing to admit that you are struggling, right? And not be afraid to either talk to somebody, ask for help, or even if it sucks, getting off the mountain, driving all the way back home and getting stuff right so that you can focus on that hunt. Because if you're not 100% when you're up there, why are you up there? Like
Yeah.
it's going to take 100% focus for you to kill that animal. So if your mind's at home, you should probably be at home and get that figured out. So that being said, usually I don't know. Okay. Let me expand on that. After the 4 days, dude, I picked up a Bible and I read it every single night for 7 months straight after that. But that first couple weeks of reading the Bible and stuff, I had never felt that amount of clarity and peace and comfort. It was insane. And I went back, hunted one day and hunted the next day with Braxton, and I killed a buck.
That's awesome.
Dude, it was, I mean, the YouTube video, I freak out pretty substantially. And now telling that story, people might be able to understand why, because of all the stuff that I was going through. And then just that huge rush of emotions and then the higher power and everything, dude, it was pretty wild, pretty spiritual, and it was crazy. But I think having ventured more into, and I'm sorry I'm talking about God and stuff like that, but
take off, man.
Having found God, dude, I found so much more comfort being up there in the mountains.
Yeah.
And I've always been someone who is said and believed that, you know, I'm no closer. I can't be closer to God than I am when I'm on the mountain. Right. But starting to read the Bible and having that spiritual experience, dude, I never thought that I could feel that much closer to him. And it helped a ton, dude. It helped me through a dark time.
That's incredible, man. And again, there's been very few times where I've went off on this podcast and preached. And it might happen right now, but you know, the Bible gives us a promise. Jesus says, draw nigh unto me and I'll draw nigh unto you. And it's such a simple statement, but it's also one of the most beautiful promises I can find in Scripture. And that's, if you'll draw close to me, I will draw close to you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Doesn't matter where you're at. Doesn't matter what you're doing. If you'll seek me and you'll draw close to me, I will draw close to you. So it tells me two things. Some people sit there and they soak in their pity party. They stay in their hard place, like you talked about, whatever it might be. And then they ask themselves, well, I'm a Christian. Why do I not feel the presence of God? And I can remember one time I was sitting on the back deck of a cabin in Oklahoma. And me and Chrissy, it was actually at a total archery challenge. And we got a cabin and we're sitting on the back deck. And I remember sitting on the back deck, just like asking God, like, God, I want to be closer to you. I want to feel you more. I want to hear your voice more. And I'll never forget it. There's been very few times also where I've heard the voice of God like this. And he said, but are you making a way for me to get close to you? And I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh crap. He's like, you want me to get close to you, but you have all this stuff between us. You've got work between us. You've got your family between us. You've got archery and hunting, and you've got all these things between us, and you're asking me to get closer to you. And if you'll start removing those things so I can get close, I'll get close. And dude, it's just, again, tucked into a little bitty sentence. One of the most beautiful promises ever. If you'll get close to me, I will get close to you. Doesn't matter. Like, there is no, but you're the wrong color, but you're the wrong race, but you have addictions, but you have this, but you have a past. If you get close to me, I will get close to you. And it's just one of the most beautiful promises tucked right there in Scripture. And that's why I say good for you, man. Because I just think a lot of guys, they try to just grind it out and they make themselves worse and they ruin their marriages and they ruin I'll tell you what, don't tag me in jokes. I hate being tagged in jokes about like, yeah, the last wife made it through 3 deer seasons. Don't tag me in that crap. Because first and foremost, my marriage is the single most important thing to me after my salvation. And so that's why I applaud you, man. Because so many guys, and I've had a couple of those times where I'm just like, I don't need to be here. Like, I need to be at home for this birthday party. I need to be at home for whatever it might be. I need to be there. And I pack up and leave. Actually, last year, people called me crazy. I was on a hunt with Chuck Adams. And so we were sharing camp, and I had already told my wife, I'm going to come back Wednesday night to preach because it was only an hour and a half drive. I'm going to come back and preach for Wednesday night, and then I'll drive back Thursday morning to hunt again. And I got home, and I just, the kids were, Dad's back. And I couldn't bear to say, well, I'm leaving again tomorrow. And so I called Chuck and said, hey, enjoy your hunt, finish out strong, kill the giant, whatever. I'm going to stay home. And a lot of guys call me crazy. I was getting to hunt with a legend, but I just felt I needed to be there for my family at that time. And so, yes, the start of this conversation should in fact be, there's a difference in being tough mentally and being stupid mentally. Like there's a difference in being tough and hanging in there just because you're cold or just because, oh man, I don't want to sleep on an air pad again for the night. Like there's a big difference in that. And there's a big difference in having a weight on you that you need to be somewhere else and you just grit it out. There's a big difference. So thank you for making that note, because I do 100% agree with you. Now, in that moment of killing that, you said it was a deer, right? You were on a deer hunt?
Mule deer, yep.
Were you reminded, like, good thing I went home? Like, I'm glad I went home?
Yeah, 100%, dude. 100%, because on that stock and in that moment, I had like 100% focus. I didn't have any other noise in my head. It was, cool. I'm going to kill this deer. This deer is going to die by my hand, and it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And just having that 100% focus, I executed an absolutely perfect shot straight off of a cliff, and the thing was dead within a half a second. So yeah, I'm glad I went home, man. And I can't pretend that I am someone who is mentally tough. Can I endure pain? Yes. Can I push through hard things? 100%. But like you're saying, at what point does it become stupid? And there's time, like when I'm up there and if I'm asking myself, what am I doing up here? I'm going home.
Yeah.
Because like you said, salvation, family, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So
absolutely, man. And that's what, like, and that's where, so where do you draw the line as far as like, am I being weak? Like, am I being a sissy? Or for my own mental sake, for the sake of my marriage, for the sake of my children, I need to go back home? Like, where do you draw that line at?
Oh, man, I think when it comes down to it, it's something you pray about, right? And you'll get your answer.
Yeah.
That's a very individualized, I think, to where people will draw that line. And maybe I will draw a lot sooner than a lot of people. Maybe I won't. And I think it's situational dependent as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Guys, don't get me wrong. If I've spent 10 grand on a hunt and I'm 1,500 miles from home, like, it's not just, I think I need a bolt out of here. Like, then my wife's going to be furious. Like, wait a minute. Yeah. You spent a lot of money on this hunt. Why are you not trying everything you can? And that comes, that's a part of this. Like, that's a part of it. Like, financially, I've made an investment. I've put time, money, and effort into this. I've spent months getting ready for this. Like, I've got to hang in there. And there's a big difference in, okay, I'm 100 miles from home and this is a tag. I can come back next week and fill. There's a massive difference in that. So, I mean, don't, like, if you're 100%. Listening to this before you before you fly, don't go home and say, Dylan and Jared told me I shouldn't be hunting right now. Yeah. I don't want your wife mad at me. So
no, it's very situational. Like, obviously I had, being only an hour drive. Yeah, I was 6 miles in, but that's a couple hour walk. It's not that big a deal. So yeah, if I was in Alaska, then I would be toughing it out. Right.
Right.
But I don't know, like, I really think you pray about it and you really kind of have to weigh the pros and cons. And you do a little bit of a self-assessment while you're up there. And
Mm-hmm.
really, truly, you have to dig down deep, do some soul searching, as cheesy as it sounds, and really ask yourself what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
Is it I'm tired and dehydrated, and so I'm just kind of emotional? Or is it I have some loose ends that are at home that I need to take care of?
Right. And that's what, like, there is a difference too. If I'm heading to Idaho, 3,000 miles from home, and I've invested a whole bunch of money into this, chances are I'm tying up those ends before I leave. Like, I'm making sure,
Mhm.
I always try the night before I leave is always okay. Let me actually, the second night before I leave. So I've got 2 more nights at home. The first night is going to be, I'm going to take my kids out. We're going to do something super fun. Dave and Buster's, or whatever it might be. Just spend time with them kids. My wife stays at home. Baby, I want you to stay home, take a bath, pamper yourself, have a good, whatever you want to do. This is your time because I know you're about to be stuck with the kids for 10 days. So you get a night at home. I'm going to go spend time with my kids. And then the night before I leave, I'm going to send the kids somewhere, grandma or grandpa's, and I'm going to spend a whole bunch of time with my wife. I'm going to take you out to dinner, movie, whatever you want to do together, us. And that makes sure that gets me recharged. That gets my batteries refueled so I can go out there and make it through that. And it makes sure, if there is something bothering my wife, she has that time to talk to me. She has that time to share that with me so that we can address it before I go. So there is a big difference in, like, if I'm running out to a deer hunt for the evening and I get out there and I'm realizing, like, crap, dude, I'm making my wife miss this so I can be out here. That's not cool.
Mhm.
There's a lot more planning that goes into it. So, it is very situational. I will say that. One thing that has helped me tremendously, and I do want to get into kind of the game of, like, you're right. I am tired. I am dehydrated. This sucks. My whole body hurts. How do I get through it? But one thing that helps me on the emotional side of things, and I used to say, like, oh, like, head out to the woods and have fun, but a Garmin InReach, like being able to just send my wife a text and saying, hey, baby, I love you. Hope everything is well. I hope this is going good, whatever. I hope the job interview went good, whatever it might be. But it gives me that chance to be able to communicate with my wife. How are you doing? How are the kids doing? What's going on? That can go bad though, too. I mean, that can go bad. And her saying, well, the kids are missing you like
Awesome.
crazy. And that gets hard too. But it
Yeah.
still lets me have that line of communication. So it helps a ton. My wife got mad at me last year though, because I was heading into the mountains. And I'm like, listen, baby, got an hour of service left. The way the InReach works, I got to pay for messages there and back. So if you can tell that it's an automated message, like, don't just message me back just for the sake of it. Like, if I'm just letting you know I'm safe, love you, don't just message me back. And she said, okay. And then the very next morning, I text her. I said, what was the score of the football game last night? And I said, did we win? And she's like, I thought you had to pay for text messages. I'm like, I do, but that's worth knowing right now.
That's worth the 50 cents.
Yeah, that is worth 50 cents to me. All right. So on the just the mental toughness of, like, you know what, this does suck. Like, what do you tell yourself to get through that, dude? Because I've been with some bad to the bone dudes on the mountain, and then they're like, oh, dude, my knee is just hurting. I'm out. Like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? What are you talking about, dude? Like, you're going to have to grit through this. We got to get it done. What are you telling yourself to work through that?
So I think a lot of the preseason preparation plays into this. Knowing your body, knowing how your body reacts in certain atmospheres. Like, you should be training outside in 100-degree weather
Mm-hmm.
if your hunt is in August. You can't expect to be in an air-conditioned gym walking on the Stairmaster and think that you're going to be able to handle 100 degrees at 10,000 feet. Is it going to help? Yeah, it's going to help. But starting with that and seeing how your body handles stuff, you could be hyper aware when things start to kick off, like, oh, I'm starting to get dehydrated, or I'm starting to get tight in this location, or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, I need to stop and eat because I'm getting dizzy and I'm not used to the altitude. You gotta be, it goes back to the self-assessment thing, right? If one of your guys is saying, my knee is really hurting, I can't do this anymore. It's like, okay, I get that it's hurting. Is it an injury? Is it just tight? Are you just exhausted? Because if it's just tight and you're exhausted, take the rest of the day off. Sit there in glass, rehydrate, refuel. Mountain Physio, he has a super lightweight scraping tool. And if you know how to do that, sit up there and scrape out your muscles and stuff. Because honestly, most of the time, it's probably just muscle tightness that's causing your knee pain. Stuff like that, being aware of your body. Because like it or not, being a backcountry hunter, you are an athlete. If you're wanting to be successful and optimize your performance up there, you are going to be some form of an athlete, right? So you should know how your body works, and you should know how to operate your body. And what if you do have nagging injuries or old chronic stuff, you should be able to know how to handle that and kind of fix it on the fly.
Yeah.
So
Preston Ward's an absolute G. Like, he's just
such a good dude.
A gangster, dude. And listen, I would encourage everybody, like, go check out Preston Ward Mountain Physio. I'm not sponsored by him in any way. He's just a friend of mine, but he has helped me tremendously. I did a video a while back. I was having severe shoulder pain, and within an hour on the phone, he walked me through some exercises. I did those exercises for a week. The pain was gone. Like, just incredible guy. Very knowledgeable. And I would encourage you, if you have any type of pain going into the mountain's only going to magnify that. Like, it's not going to get better through that hunt. Like, if your knees are hurting going into the hunt, it's just going to magnify that. So if use this upcoming 2 weeks to evaluate, like, all right, do my knees hurt? My ankles feel good? And that will give you time to get some exercises in motion to help you get those things in check before you get to the mountain. And if not, it'll at least give you the idea of, okay, what are some things I can do on the mountain if this flares up, if this starts to hurt? So I would highly encourage you these next 2 weeks, start assessing your body and figuring out, okay, if I side hill, my knee hurts really bad. Why is that? Let's address that and try to get it somewhat fixed before we go. Now on the, it could be a movement, an exercise. It could be a supplement or a whatever. But do you take anything with you? I mean, you mentioned the scraper, but do you take any kind of tools or ideas with you in case, knee pain, ankle pain, anything like that for on the mountain and it starts to hurt?
Tools wise, like I might bring a spiked ball that's super lightweight that I could either like roll my feet out, roll my calves out, like roll between my scapulas and stuff, because those get really tight packing weight and stuff like that. So anything that I can do that with. And then that scraper, as far as tools go. But honestly, if you can't tell by now, if your listeners can't tell by now, hydration is king or queen. It is. Hydration is everything. I mean, you're going to be less tight in your muscles and everything if your electrolytes are on point. So it all comes down to keeping up on your nutrition and hydration. It's kind of been the theme of this whole thing. But that helps tremendously, because if you're dehydrated, you're going to tighten up, you're going to cramp up, your muscles are going to get PO'd and tighten up on you, which is going to cause pain in certain places. But I mean, having a background in training, working with Preston a decent amount, and might potentially be his strength training coach on his app very soon.
Oh,
I have a pretty good base knowledge of how to handle tight muscles in certain places and stuff like that. So
very cool. So what's your number one piece of advice? Guys are 2 weeks out. Maybe let's address the guy who, is like me. You live in the Midwest, the South, the East, wherever, and you're heading out west. What's your number one piece of advice for these next 2 weeks leading up to their hunt?
Like,
other than hydrate. Don't say hydrate.
Dude, hydrate. You just got what do you want? Physically, mentally, what do you want?
Could be gear wise, could be mentally, physically, shooting tips, practice tip, doesn't matter. Your number one tip, you've got 2 weeks. This is what you need to start doing.
Well, since if you haven't taken care of your physical fitness until this point, I'm going to leave that out of it. Make sure all your loose ends are tied up at home.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you got a list of all the gear that you think you need. If you feel like you're forgetting something, reach out to somebody who lives in the Western states that hunts elk and stuff. Social media is an amazing tool. Ask them, like, this is what I got. What else do I need? You don't want to find out when you get on the mountain that you needed something else. So make sure that all of your gear is just dialed in, ready to go. As far as gear goes, I think the two most important things that you could have of quality are boots and a pack.
Bingo, dude. I say that all the time. On the ask a friend question too, ask somebody in the area, and not just. And the reason I say that is because weather is hard to tell. You know, if you're going and you say, well, I'm just outside of Missoula. Yeah, but you're just outside of Missoula, 3,000 feet higher than Missoula. So don't just check the weather from Missoula and then say, yeah, that's what it's going to be. Call somebody in that area and say, what's it been like? What are you expecting? Like how cold, how wet? I mean, ask those type of questions too, because there's a big difference, down in Missoula, where that's the closest town you can check the weather to, and then up on the mountain where you're going to be hunting. So call a friend and ask that type of stuff too, to help you assess the closing you got. Yeah.
Or call a biologist if you find anybody. Biologists are great help. So use them as a resource too.
Absolutely.
But check the forecast before you leave.
Yeah. Jared, where can they find you at, man? Where do they follow you and check you out at?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube is Peaked Out Adventures. I do have a TikTok, not super active on that anymore, but it's Peaked Out Adventures as well. So,
guys, if you're a traditional archer and you have not checked out Three Rivers Archery, what are you waiting for? Three Rivers Archery is your one-stop shop for all things traditional archery. They have the largest in-stock selection of traditional archery equipment anywhere. Same-day shipping, very, very, very knowledgeable. Listen, I use Three Rivers all the time. If I've got a question on tuning, if I've got a question on broadheads, if I've got a question on brace height or anything like that, I use Three Rivers for everything. They know the products because they use the products. Three Rivers Archery is by far the gold standard when it comes to traditional archery. So guys, if you're just getting into traditional archery, I would encourage you to use Three Rivers as a resource for knowledge and understanding and growing and learning, and as a place to get all those products that you're going to be needing as you take this journey.
Guys, go check them out, and good luck this fall. I would love to share in your success. So you guys are always good about emailing me and sending me pictures on social media. Make sure and send those to me. Would love to celebrate your success with you, but nonetheless, get out on the mountain, enjoy it. The greatest time of year is here. So go have some fun, run around the mountain, and hopefully kill a big old giant bull.